Press start now. Press start now. Press start now. Press start now.
I've been through the rabbit hole. Doing these reviews have shown me what I've been meant to see. Looking at myself, this wasn't who I was anymore. This isn't who I am anymore. I know now I need to carry on what he wants me to continue. I must become him. I am Jack Friedman.
The NFL, or just NFL. This was the official football game endorsed by, or licensed by the NFL. Overall, it's not a bad game, but it does have some fundamental flaws. First of all, when you're picking out a team, you can't go back if you make mistakes. So if you accidentally pick a team you don't want, there's nothing you can do about that but reset. It does have a lot of things that to this day football games use, such as the different upgrade options or the packages you can choose for how the teams play. Very surprising for a game this old. The only major downside nitpicking wise would be you really don't get to see the player's name, so if you have a favorite player, things like that, you can't play as them or really know what's going on there. The major downside to this game is that it doesn't have the plays actually in the game. The plays in the instruction manual. So if you don't have an instruction manual and you get to where it's going to have you select your plays using the controller, again, so the other people couldn't see what you were doing if you're playing two players, it's not that bad. One thing it is lacking, even for games back in this time, is the ability to control your kick. Kicks are pretty much automatic in this game. The other thing is it's slow. It is slow. So here we go. Pick a play. No idea what I'm picking. Shows you what the play is. Again, unless you have the instruction manual, you really have no idea. I unfortunately don't. So through trial and error, I figured out which combination were run plays, which combinations were passing plays. The other thing is, this game plays in real time. If you look at the quarter, it's in real time. Maybe faster by a few milliseconds, so maybe instead of 1 second, it's every 2 seconds. Still, it's much longer than it needs to be. And with the sluggish controls, it becomes more of a chore playing than some of the more well-known games. I think the most well-known football game for the NES was Tecmo Bowl, which was amazing. This one really tried to be a simulator, and in that regards, it succeeds. Unfortunately, with the poor execution, you're going to be looking at those other substitutes.
My mind shot back into reality from the NFL game that was going on in my head. It was time for me to change. It was time for me to wait. Wouldn't Jack want me to do it my way? Yeah, my way. I started to think about Major League Baseball.
LJN also acquired the rights for the Major League Baseball game, the game officially licensed by the MLB. This one tends to have more flaws than merits, unlike the NFL game. The nice thing with it is basically what you're seeing here. They have all the teams. You can go through, see the players. You can set up your batting order. You can set up your outfield, who's going to be your infielders. So again, the simulation feel is there. It definitely has something if you were a sports fan, happened to be in the video games at the time as well, which was almost a rarity. unlike what's going on today where everyone plays video games. See, unlike today, where basically everyone plays some form of game, back in the 80s, you were a nerd.
Get those nerds! Nerd! Nerd!
If you played games. Video games, to be exact. General rule of thumb there was exceptions, but on a whole, playing video games in the 80s was looked down upon by those who would consider themselves jocks.
Well, look at you now. You just got your asses whipped by a bunch of goddamn nerds. Nerds!
So now I got my team pretty much picked once I get the picture. There we go. Now the computer picked theirs a lot faster than it was for me. And we finally get to the game. The sound is not very good, just like in the NFL game, which I didn't mention. The crowd sounds like static. One of the things going on here is you can move up and down, but not side to side, which was something most people were used to with the bases loaded games. So it's limiting in that regards. It's not very good graphics even for the time it came out. This is very basic. This is almost Atari level. The outfield, best way I can describe it is foosball. So if you push left on the controller, everyone's going left on a line. A lot of the baseball games use that, and it was obnoxious. The AI is also not very good, which isn't honestly to be expected. I tend to find of the two, the NFL game a lot more interesting. I think it's because my personal preference when it comes to sports is I'm more of a football fan than I am a baseball fan. LJN also got the rights to Roger Clemens MVP baseball. This one you would think would be just like the Major League Baseball game. However, it's really not. Oakland Bashers, Seattle Pioneers, the Minnesota Hounds.
Who is that? Must be Serrano.
So they got the rights to one player, and that was it. When you look at this, they use fake names, things that aren't even funny, like Pucker. I live in Minnesota. Kirby Puckett, it's K Pucker. Really? We're gonna go there? So it takes away from those people that were looking for a simulator, which is odd because it uses an actual player's name. Graphically, it's a major step up from MLB, so that's definitely a plus. Another interesting thing is where I felt they did the NFL game a lot better, they never got another license or made another football game, at least for the console, and for any other system as far as I know. Yet they put out what I felt was a weaker baseball game and got the rights to yet another baseball game. However, this one's actually not bad. I found this one a lot of fun. The players aren't in a line. It uses almost cinematic style for the outfield. Something that I feel that they use even today with your next generation console ones. It's not bad. The only problem I have with it is the AI. This game is actually very unforgiving. Hit detection is a bit off on the bat. Where you run slow to the bases, the computer seems to run very fast. So it has its pros, it has its cons. Overall, I felt this one was a lot more enjoyable experience between the two baseball games.
Looking at myself in the mirror, I could see my transformation was nearly complete. I was becoming what I was always intended to become. introduce myself.
Say hello to the new TVH. Oh, Pictionary. Because it needed to be made. Thanks, LJN. There's really not a lot to talk about this one. It's Pictionary. On the Nintendo. They do some interesting things with it, I guess. So just being one player, and it insults you too. I'm playing Pictionary by myself on the Nintendo, and you're insulting me. So really, you're just playing mini games to unlock the picture. Truthfully, that's it. That's all there is to it. The types of mini games change, and then you roll dice and move on the board. This one, I move blocks of paint from one side to the next. No idea. No, Space Invaders rebuff. Cute. Another problem with this game is, if you don't guess exactly what they want you to, even though you could be right, would be a technicality, you can't do it. So I'm thinking it's boat. Looks like boat. Nope. It's pointing to something. I'm gonna guess it's pointing at the sail. So let's try sail. Nope. I feel like I'm in Mallrats.
Honey's waiting.
Wow, it's a schooner.
You dumb bastard. It's not a schooner, it's a sailboat.
Oh, it's a mast. My bad. I'm done.
To summarize everything that has happened with the great Jack Friedman. In the 1960s, he works for the toy company. In 1970, he starts his own toy company, LJN Toys. In 1985, the company gets bought by MCA. Then in 1989, Acclaim buys it from MCA, LJN. And at the same year, Jack Friedman decides to found Toy Headquarters. 2 years later, in 1991, Jack Friedman then merges with this shell company, Trinity Acquisitions Incorporated, to become THQ. In 1994, Acclaim folds LJN, Arena Entertainment, and Flying Edge into the Acclaim. Everything goes under the Acclaim banner. In 1995, Jack decides to start one more company, this time named after himself, called Jack's Pacific. If you're unaware of what Jack Pacific is, you're probably either living under a rock or not a parent. They are in charge of basically all the toys that are coming out. Pokemon, Nickelodeon, Disney, WWE. If it's a major toy, Jack's Pacific is 90% of the times involved in some way. This is the company that Jack stayed with and presided over until his untimely death in 2010. Man was a genius. You know, we made some comments here in the last episode. Was it shady? Was it not? Look, it really doesn't matter. Guy was a successful businessman from the 1960s to 2010. You gotta give credit for anyone who made things and was so successful and made money and presided over so many different companies. There's no way you can ever look at this guy as anything other with admiration for what he did business-wise. There's no other way to look at it. On a side note, how did THQ get a hold of the games when it was staying with Acclaim? Back during the WCW WWE Monday Night Wars, WCW was actually with THQ, and they were putting out great games, getting critically reviewed, awesome reviews, doing very, very well. The WWE games were with Acclaim still, and those were getting panned as pretty bad games, as we'll see in this in their last segment. So WWE decides that they're going to go to THQ. Back to LJN. WCW decides they're not going to be a part of any company that their competitors are part of, so they go to EA. Well, EA, the games didn't go so well, they flopped, and WWE ended up winning the Monday Night Wars, and THQ ended up making some very great games for the WWE. And that's where that story ends. So the wrestling really became LJN's almost starting point back with the NES, and their ending point with this 2012. They're still making the wrestling games. Before we get to the last segment, we did not cover every single LJN game. We did not go into the handheld consoles. We didn't look at everyone that there was debate as to if it was LJN just done another banner that Acclaim had. I stuck with console classic games that LJN made. There was one game that came out in 2003 under the LJN title called Spirit of 13. It was for the Sega Dreamcast. Game was a major flop. It was the only modern LJN game that was ever made since 1994, and they went back into obscurity. I want to thank everyone for going through this journey, looking back at what was considered one of the worst gaming companies, and maybe just open your eyes to see that they're actually still around, just under a different name. So once again, thanks everyone for watching, and now for this video's main event.
Hey kids, remember this?
With wrestling superstars, it's like having a real match right in your own home. Yes, there's Jimmy Superfly Snuka, the Iron Sheik, Hulk Hogan, and Big John Studd. And now you can fly them and flip them in the Sling 'em Wrestling Ring. Wrestling superstars and new wrestling ring, each sold separately from LJN.
It's time to start the WWF WrestleMania Challenge. Remember that crazy wrestler?
The Ultimate Warrior has a lot of bad habits.
Dude was nuts. Alright. So in this game you can play as yourself. You can be the Macho King Randy Savage. Wow, that's old. Ultimate Warrior. I've already discussed him. Ravishing Rick Rude. Brutus the Barber Beefcake. Not sure where they left out the barber. Hulk Hogan. Of course you could be Hulk Hogan. Andre the Giant. Big Boss Man. And Hacksaw Jim Duggan. It didn't hit me until I started to do the audio for this that half of these wrestlers are dead. That's just bizarre. Looking at this game, the only thing it's got going for it is the sound. That little chicken dance move with the arms out, that's how you grapple. And the hit detection's really bad, so you can stand there sometimes for like 10 seconds, both players trying to grab each other. That sounds really wrong. Graphically, at the time, honestly, it wasn't bad compared to some of the wrestling games that have been out there. It was just, ooh, does not stand the test of time. 2 years later, LJN put out the WrestleMania Steel Cage Challenge. Let's take a look how that one looks in comparison to the one from 2 years ago. It looks maybe better. There's more options. Lets you hear the theme songs while you're playing through. I do like that. Although no one should have to hear the bagpipes done on 8-bit. Fuck my life. Let's just get into a match. Okay. Improvement. Definite improvement over the other game. It has an entrance. Essentially, this would be the entrance. Modern wrestling games use this now. It's not much, but it was better than what we got before. I hate the crowd. Oh my god, do I hate the crowd. That is worse than MLB and NFL combined. The Mountie looks like Bret Hart. And Hulk Hogan's body does look like a spray tan banana.
Your body looks like a spray tan banana with a Wallace mustache and a whack bandana.
The controls are way more sluggish than the last game. The grapple's much harder to pull off. This is actually a step down from the game 2 years ago. Let's look at another one. In 1993, LJN put out WWF King of the Ring. Let's take a look at this one and see how this one fares in comparison to the other two. Right off the bat, I am not impressed with the music. I still feel that the first game that LJN made for the wrestling franchise had by far the best sound. In its defense, they did bring back something I enjoyed very much, which was the Yourself character. There it is. You could also change the name. It's not much of a character creator, but a step in the right direction, and it is something that is still used today, so take that for what it is. Also, you can change your stats, and as you completed matches and won them, you gained more stats that you could put in, and you can swap them around again. So that was really, really good. I think that was probably the best thing about this game. Now let's look at the game itself. I'm not sure what I feel about the graphics comparatively. The Undertaker does look like The Undertaker as far as in the ring. The little characters down there are pretty bad. The controls in this one were fine. I like them. Although, you know, the U character is very generic, which, again, take it for what it is. The other thing I didn't go into the other games was the difficulty level. The other games were very challenging to that breaking point of frustration, but you still wanted to play them to see how you're doing. This one, on the other hand, was super easy. Never once did I really feel like I was being challenged at all by this game. Overall, my opinion for the final game that LJN put out for the WWF franchise is it was a sidestep. It wasn't really an improvement overall, but it wasn't all step down. There was good things and bad things. Last game we're going to look at is WWF Super WrestleMania for the Super Nintendo. This one came out 2 years earlier, but it's on an overall better system. So let's see if that makes the improvement that we think it would. Holy shit, is that loud. Fuck me. Well, overall, graphics and sound is a complete improvement. No surprise there. Lack of modes is a little disappointing. Also, the character roster, for it being a Super Nintendo, more bits, more memory, is a bit lacking as well. But I will say, looking at the character select here, something that was very difficult to do at that time was to take photos and digitize them into a game and make them look good. This is probably one of the best examples outside of Mortal Kombat I've ever seen. So it definitely has something going for it there. Let's go ahead and take a look at the match itself. Again, they also have the pre-game, pre-match entrance, if you were, which is again a nice improvement, but after a couple hours of playing, this one gets a little obnoxious. It's just super long and the music sucks. You just want it to be over. Enough. Alright, so let's look at the game itself. If you look and the game looks slow, it's because it is. The problem with it is, in order to make the game look good, they added extra animations. And you can see that. It looks very fluid when they're moving, but the problem is when you hit a button, it takes almost a full second for it to actually complete. So it gives a very sluggish, very slow feeling to it. The other thing I will say, of all the games, this one is absolutely the most difficult. I also felt that their lack of what they used for the controls, having 6 buttons instead of 2, was very disappointing as well. So, I mean, graphically better, but the controls were still pretty crap. I'm not quite sure what's up with the black dot in the middle of the screen there. It happened during recording every time I recorded. Humble beginnings for a company that would turn into THQ, Jack Specific, and rule the wrestling games in the next generation consoles.